World War II, the largest armed conflict that humanity has known. A deadly war that involved tens of millions of fighters around the world. Mussolini, the Prime Minister of Italy, and Hitler were strong believers in nationalism. They wanted to make their nations powerful, and they didn't care how much money or how much lives it took to achieve that power. Germany, Italy, and Japan spent a large amount of money to build armed forces on land, sea, and in the air. And in 1940, these three nations formed the military alliance that became known as the Axis powers.
The Treaty of Versailles was one of the most important events of the 20th century, and it had far-reaching consequences.
In 1929, years of booming prosperity ended in catastrophe. It was the biggest stock market crash since records began.
The Treaty of Versailles was a major cause of World War II, and this is the peace treaty that ended World War I in 1919. The treaty was intended to keep peace among nations, but it did the exact opposite. Although the Europeans were very happy with the outcome of the treaty, but Germany wasn't. The treaty punished Germany very harshly, and Germany was blamed for starting World War I, and therefore was forced to accept full responsibility for World War I. Even some of the Allies were not happy. For example, the Italians, they thought that they should have gotten more land from the treaty. And among the many conditions, Germany was forced to give up territory, pay billions of dollars in war reparations, and limit the size of their army and navy. And this upset the Germans because it made them look weak, and they were very unhappy with their government for signing the treaty. The second long-term cause of World War II was the various economic factors. Germany was already in debt of World War I and was struggling to pay back the war reparations from the Treaty of Versailles. And when the German Great Depression hit Europe, Germany was crippled. And Germany became even more unhappy with their current government, and many Germans were afraid that Germany would fall to communism, and they were looking for a strong leader to help them recover economically. Hitler used this opportunity to gain control over Germany. He made many promises to the German people, and he said he would world off communism, get Germany out of the depression, and will build the German Empire. The people had faith that Hitler would be able to accomplish his goals. Hitler was elected into government and seized control from within. Once Hitler was in power in Germany, he began his plans of rebuilding the German Empire. He formed an alliance with Benito Mussolini of Italy, as well as a secret peace pact with the Soviet Union. He kept his promise of freeing Germany from the chains of the Treaty of Versailles, and he began to rebuild the military and invade surrounding countries. Germany, Italy, and Japan revolted during the 1930s, and Hitler did too. He did follow the Treaty of Versailles, and in 1936 he sent an army into Rhineland, and under the treaty it was a demilitarized zone. Germany was not allowed to put soldiers there, but Hitler did put soldiers there, and no one stopped him. Then he broke the treaty once again by taking over Austria. Next, Hitler wounded Sudetenland, which was a part of the new nation of Czechoslovakia. The Czechs were ready to fight, but French and the British were not.
Chamberlain and Deladje prevailed upon Czechoslovakia to give up the Sudetenland without a fight. In Britain, a happy Chamberlain came back declaring he had achieved peace in our time.
Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister, believed he could make a deal with Hitler in 1938. He and the Prime Minister of France, Edward Deladje, met Hitler in Munich, Germany. Hitler promised to stop his aggression if he could just have the Sudetenland. Chamberlain and Deladje agreed to let Hitler have the Sudetenland, and this policy to give Hitler what he wanted in order to avoid war was called appeasement. Chamberlain happily declared that he had won peace, but Hitler quickly broke the deal by seizing the rest of Czechoslovakia. And not only that, and after taking Czechoslovakia, Hitler then wanted Poland, but he was worried about the Soviet Union. Hitler didn't want to fight a two-front war with France and Great Britain, the Poles, and the Soviet Union. So he signed a non-aggression treaty with Stalin, and he is the former premier of the Soviet Union, and they agreed not to go on a war against each other. Hitler agreed because he was not ready to fight the Poles and the Soviets, though he secretly planned to, and Stalin agreed because his army was not ready, and this treaty gave him time to prepare.
1939, the Nazi army smashed into Poland.
And on September 1, 1939, Hitler ordered an invasion of Poland, and 2 days later, Great Britain and France declared a war on Germany, and the other nations joined them, and they were called the Allies. And World War II began, from September 1, 1939 to September 2, 1945, which is 6 years. So two sides were fighting each other, the Allies, Britain, France, the Soviet Union, the United States, and the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan, fought each other all over the world, and over the next 6 years, more than 70 nations could be involved in the war. The Western Front. Germans fought hard and fast, and in only a few weeks, Poland surrendered and Hitler then turned west. Denmark fell, and so did Luxembourg. France built its defense, and France fell to the Germans in June of 1940. Germany next prepared to conquer Great Britain, and after 10 tough months, the British defeated the German Air Force. The Eastern Front. It took only 2 years for Hitler to break his treaty with Stalin, and on June 22, 1941, Hitler invaded the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union joined the Allies. Hitler and his soldiers were not ready for the Soviet winter. The Soviets and the cold winter stopped the Germans in the east. The Soviets then attacked, and on February 2, 1943, the German soldiers in the Soviet Union surrendered. It was a turning point in the war. Pacific Front. As in World War I, the United States tried to stay out of World War II, while the Germans were attacking Europe. The Japanese were attacking territories in the Pacific Ocean, and on December 7, 1941, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Then the United States declared war on Japan, and the next day, Hitler and Mussolini declared war on the United States. The United States defeated the Japanese Navy at Midway Island, and this was a turning point in the war in the Pacific. The United States soldier raised the flag over Laugina, a Pacific island, and by early 1943, the tide of battle had turned against the Axis powers. Next, the Allies conquered the Italian island of Sicily, and the Italians forced Mussolini out of office. Hitler sent fresh troops, but the Allies defeated them and took control of Italy. From 1941 to 1945, several battles took place on islands in the Pacific Ocean. The war ends. On June 6, 1944, the Allies landed in Normandy, France. The invasion was called D-Day. The Germans fought very hard, but the Allies had too many soldiers and too many planes. And by August, the Allies had freed Paris and the Soviet army moved in from the east. The Germans were trapped, and on May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered. Hitler shot himself to avoid being captured alive. Japan remained the last undefeated Axis power. American planes bombed Tokyo. The city was in ruins, but the Japanese refused to surrender. Then, in August 6, the United States introduced a new grim weapon and dropped an atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. About 160,000 people were killed. 3 days later, the United States dropped another atomic bomb on the city of Nagasaki. The Japanese surrendered, and World War II was finally over.
May 8, 1945. Victory in Europe Day.